Now, the European Union deal between Britain and Europe, oh my goodness me, was this a reset or just a catastrophe? Because when you look at the headlines today in the papers, almost all of them saying that Keir Starmer is kissing goodbye to Brexit, OK? So he says, though, it's a move that will boost the UK economy by £9 billion and put Britain back on the world stage. Do you believe that?
Well, it was announced in London yesterday with EU leaders at his side, and the agreement includes access to European fishing fleets for 12 years in British waters and ties the UK to EU food standards and the European Court of Justice.
Supporters call it win-win, and that's the headline on the Mirror today as well. But critics warn it edges Britain closer to the EU than so many people expected or feared.
Well, we're joined now by Deputy Editor for Spiked, Fraser Myers, and former Labour advisor Mike Buckley. Good to see you both this morning. Fraser, let's start with you. Is it a win-win?
No, it's definitely a big loss for the UK. Keir Starmer has essentially allowed the EU to have control or to have regulatory oversight over vast swathes of our economy, signing us up to effectively the single market for food. Fishing, those coastal communities have been absolutely betrayed. They won't get to renegotiate, not even the right to use British waters, but the right to negotiate the use of British waters for another 12 years. Those negotiations were due to happen on an annual basis. And then there's some other really hidden nasties in there as well. We're being signed up to the EU's single market on energy, and we're going to sign up to their emissions trading scheme. That means that actually British electricity prices are going to go up. It could mean that the price of petrol at the pump could go up because the EU's carbon tax, which this brings us into, is significantly higher than the UK carbon tax at current. So this is going against something that the government promised. It promised to lower our energy bills. It's potentially raising them in the name of rejoining the EU.
OK, well, Mike's been listening to you. Mike's a former Labour advisor on this one. And yet, Mike, just looking at the front page of the Mirror today, and it's they call it a win-win on this one. But they're one of the few voices that do see it positively, Mike.
This is a significant win for Britain. I'm surprised, actually, how good this deal is, because it was trailed as going to be very minimal. Actually, in the end, it's turned out to be something quite substantive. Far from putting energy prices up, for example, it's going to bring energy prices down. I've done a lot of work in the last year or two with the energy sector on this, and one of their key asks was to get our energy system back in the EU system. It's going to make electricity trading cheaper. What that means is that your electricity bills are going to be cheaper. It also means we're going to be able to invest more in renewable energy in the North Sea. That is also going to bring down your electricity bill because we're going to get free wind energy, basically, rather than paying for fossil fuels from another country. It's also going to bring your food prices down because it's going to be easier to trade food across the channel. That means those costs are therefore reduced for producers and for exporters and for importers. So that's going to make your food bills cheaper. It also makes the UK safer in two ways. Firstly, because we've got a security and defence pact with the EU.
Not confirmed, though, Mike.
Well, it will be confirmed. I mean, I think that's a certainty because it was a key interest for both sides. That's going to make us all safer because our militaries are going to be able to work together more closely, which keeps us all safer against Russia because we're going to be able to do more to support Ukraine. And also it brings our police forces closer together because when we left the EU, we had to leave the databases on what criminals were doing in Europe and who was travelling where. That's going to affect lots of things. One of the things it will affect will be a collaboration on small boats and stopping people smugglers.
Now,
So,
on the subject of boats, Mike,
are.
a thing that is annoying and frightening, I think, a lot of people is this sort of headline in The Sun, which says, done up like a kipper. And it refers, obviously, to our fishermen around the country. Why do you think that the fishing deal was so generous towards the Europeans? 12 years in return for 0.3% of growth by 2040.
0.3% of growth is worth having. And when you consider the state of our economy and the fact that it's been fairly stagnant for the last sort of 15 years, 0.3% might not sound like a lot, but it's fairly significant, and it's going to add a great deal of confidence to Rachel Reeves as she's talking about getting the economy growing again. And for example, I think the benefits from their planning reforms are somewhere between 0.2 and 0.4%. depending on how that works out in terms of the economy. So 0.3%, I mean, it's not the be-all and end-all. Brexit's actually made us 4% poorer. So were we to rejoin the EU, that would be a much more significant boost to our economy. But politically, of course, that is not going to happen. So in those circumstances, 0.3% is well worth having.
Can I just take on some of those claims there? Brexit has not made the UK economy 4% poorer. This is based on an estimate that was made before the vote by the Office for Budget Responsibility. We've seen that actually, the UK is growing faster than the EU. I think a lot of this deal reflects this quite starry-eyed view of the EU as this sort of dynamic, growing economy, as this something as this sort of progressive bloc. I mean, none of this is really true. The EU is really, really struggling economically. It has serious problems. It's not the centre of growth in the world, and signing us up to it is not going to deliver good things for the UK. I mean, also it's worth taking the food prices up. Food prices going to come down. Food prices are lower in the UK than they are in the EU, and they have been for a long time. There hasn't been any great divergence since Brexit, any divergence in particular. So it's not clear what the actual benefits are from rejoining this food deal. And again, in terms of the fishermen, if President Macron is willing to stand up for French fishermen, why is Keir Starmer not willing to stand up for British fishermen? They were willing to scupper this deal on behalf of the French fishermen. So, why is our government not standing up for British interests?
Do you feel as though we've given away too much too easily here, Fraser?
I think so. I think the problem is fundamentally for Keir Starmer and for the Labour government is that they see any rapprochement with the EU as inherently good, as inherently positive. And so they haven't been clear-sighted about the actual pros and cons and about the actual national interest when doing these negotiations. They're just happy to be at the summit and to declare a win and to say that we are putting Brexit behind us without really thinking too much about the real details here.
Our poll of the day today is a bit vague on this. It's saying, do we need to reset relations with the EU? I think that means, do we need to reset them not yesterday, but today, now that we've seen what they involve? So do we need to rip this agreement up? Do we need to walk away from this? What is your view of the deal that the Prime Minister has done with Europe, OK? So if you think we need to now reset what has happened, get in touch, scan that QR code there and have your say. Now, Pat, first of all, before we go into the political analysis of all of this, as a punter, what do you think of the headlines you're waking up to today?
Well, good morning, Eamon, and hello, dear viewer. I mean, this is shocking to me because I thought we'd left and that was it. It was done and dusted. But apparently now we're sort of dipping back into the water, literally.
So you haven't heard the end of it, you're thinking?
Well, now I'm thinking we haven't heard the end of it, but the whole idea originally was that was it. We're out and everything will be cheaper and it'll all be marvellous.
Well, so what is it? What have we got, Anna, with this?
So what we've got is a shabby sellout of our historic fishing industry. I often talk about this. We've had fishing in the Thames estuary, particularly Leon Sea, where I come for 1,000 years. And when we came out of Brexit, one of the things the fishermen were not happy about was that they were still kept into the orbit of Brussels for 5 years. But that was due to come to an end next year. So as of next year, we were going to be able to take complete control of our fishing waters. And what this has done is given this away. Now, fishermen have had a bad time for decades, as we know. The fishing industry has halved in the last 40 years. This is probably going to be the end of our small fishing fleet.
Well, you see, it's funny, that's the bit that I feel. It's like they'll try and make out farmers are going to do very well out of this. I don't know. They say they will. But, Pat, I think, who cares about the fishermen? Nobody seems to care. They are on their own, swimming on their own.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I think that the problem is you can go right back to the arguments with Iceland, can't you, from many, many years ago? So
Cod Wars.
Yeah, Cod Wars. I remember that when I was young. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just the fishermen themselves. It's actually bad for the environment and for the fish to let these huge European trawlers come over and dig up the seabed. I was talking to my fisherman in Leon Sea yesterday, and he said that since 1st of April, over 11 million pounds of quality bass has been thrown back into our sea because of EU rules, which we were hoping to escape next
Well, that's what
year.
people voted for.
And that's what people voted for. So this is a disaster for our fishermen. It's a total sellout, and it's a disgrace.
What have we got in return, Anna?
Well, what have we got in return? We've got the right for North London lovies to be able to go abroad and apparently have a slightly quicker way through with their e-things. But as most people know, any airport can already let you use the e-gates, and a huge number of airports in Europe, Amsterdam, Mallorca, Portugal, you can already use these e-things. And apparently we're going to bring back passports for dogs and cats. So, you know, we have
You must support that, Anna.
Well,
Come on.
of course, I absolutely support passports for dogs coming back. But come on, we've got to get serious. This is a very, very bad deal for the UK. And you know, I'm afraid Starmer has shown us what we all knew. You know, he's the arch Remainer. He can't wait to get us back into the orbit of the EU. And this is the beginning. And we need to stand up for our fishermen and stand up for what 17.4
But instead,
million
he's standing up for tourists, you know, people going to Ibiza, Mallorca and whatever, and it stops moaning and complaining in those queues, doesn't
Long
it?
queues, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you welcome, Pat? 'Cause you do a lot of DJing across Europe, don't you? Have you noticed the queues are longer at the airport?
Yeah, it is a little bit busier, but at the end of the day, you know, I think if you're going to work there, you just have to deal with it the same as you would do at home with a traffic jam, so you get on with it.